Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily's Visions. It's been a while. I've been struggling. I haven't got ill from COVID, but I've been struggling with all of the emotional repercussions of people adapting to it and the various things. Now we're in lockdown, now we're not. All of the stuff that's going on. And I've wanted to post, but then I found that I have the energy to do so, and then something else comes up, and that takes the energy. It's a wide cycle of recovery before I can do anything again. So, finding the right time for these videos is often quite hard, especially when then seizures interrupt. So so I wanted today to talk about ableism. And the impact that it can have on people. My reason for this is that I can see that because of COVID, one of the things is we've developed I can see the world developing this sort of awareness of illness on a deeper level, because we're all sharing this experience. And of course, there's still plenty of people who like to deny the fact that things are happening, but we have people who have caught COVID and then have long-term conditions. And it's not been easy to know how to talk about and to deal with those things. And as somebody I sustained my brain injury when I was 8, so I've been struggling with disability nearly all my life. So I thought that maybe I could share my experience and also have a few sort of tips and tricks and coping mechanisms that I've had to sort of discover and develop over my time of learning how to live with my disability, because long-term illness in an ableist world is not easy to deal with. It's not easy to explain. People don't want to hear about it. So I try to keep my videos to a certain length, but I'm not too sure you will know how long this video is, but I won't, because I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. So first, what is an ableist? There's loads of people's definitions for ableism or for any words whatsoever, but for me, from my research and from my experience of meeting people, they're sort of, an ableist is someone who believes there's a normal, that everyone could reach if they just made the effort. And so if they don't reach the normal, and this can be in all sorts of different circumstances, people just think that they're either not interesting or they're not made the effort, because they can't imagine that there's any real excuse for not being normal. They are ableist. They believe that everybody ultimately is able. So for those of you who have seen my PIP videos, I've been through several PIP and also DLA before. Been getting the support that I need for my disability for quite a while now, although I have to keep on going back and even going to court to talk about the fact that I've got brain damage, and I had that like a few years ago. Yeah, well, I've still got it. I haven't recovered from brain damage. We all know that, and so please give me the money that you owe me. And that's been hard. I mean, I've even had, for example, one time I had my whole claim completely dismissed because I was able to walk from the car to the appointment across the car park. Now, my claim had beforehand, the claim that I had before and the current claim had nothing in it to do with the fact that I couldn't walk from a car to a place. I can do that. So that's an example of ableism. Oh, look, she can do that, therefore she must be able to do everything, therefore we will not give her any support. Lots of people have experienced this. More and more people are speaking up about it, and so it's really great for visibility, and also change is really slow, but it does happen when people speak up, so that's great. But one thing I wanted to point out is that when we have a situation like this, it's tempting to demonize the individual situation. So for example, the people at PIP, and go, the government don't want to pay money, they are the bad ones. I think it's quite comforting if we can do that, because if you imagine that was true, then that would mean all we have to cope with is that enemy. We don't have it anywhere else. But I'm here to tell you that prejudice and discrimination that I've experienced at PIP, and many people have, that's on all levels of society. all levels of society. It is merely evidence of quite a common attitude, which you will see in people all over the place. And also the prejudice is of varying sizes, so sometimes it's hard to spot. You might have the big prejudice, which is like, all people who aren't pulling their weight, don't deserve to exist. And then you might have the small, right down to small, big, small prejudice, which is something like, Nancy didn't come to my party because she doesn't like me, as opposed to the fact that she may well have had a seizure, for example, or have a difficulty she can't explain. But still, we judge her because she's not doing what we want her to do. So that is existed on all different levels of reality. So with COVID, as I said, we've become aware that illness is something that's real. It's not just something that one takes a week off work, and if you take more than a week, then perhaps you're milking it. There are people who have had COVID and recovered but have long-term problems. They have fatigue, or their senses don't work the same way, or and these are people. I mean, I've met people who've had this problem, friends of friends and things, and I've heard of these things. So again, plenty of ableism in this society. There'll be plenty of people who say, oh, they're just exaggerating, oh, it's not really happening. And again, I understand why often ableists do this, and it's because they want to feel secure in themselves. They don't want to think about sickness, disability, or people not being able to do something. Perhaps they don't even want to accept the fact that they themselves are mortal or fallible or may get ill themselves. So then they'd prefer to just pretend it doesn't exist. But it's not kind for the people who are having to actually deal with it. And I also want to make a point that even I, as somebody with brain damage, and I've had to face the fact that I have brain damage and frequent epilepsy, even I have these prejudices. The epilepsy and being disabled does grind you down and make you have to be, either get depressed or become extremely pragmatic about these things. But, I still have prejudices. I still think, I still jump in ableist ways at things, so it's not particular individuals or particular personalities or types of people who have this attitude. It's a human thing, So when you have a long-term disability or illness, often ableists will project on you, and it's very difficult because once somebody's made up their mind about you, I mean, you have to have a lot of energy and determination to change their mind, or they may not even want to hear your point of view, but even if they did, it would take a lot of time and energy. And funnily enough, you don't have that time and energy because you have a chronic disability or illness. And I've experienced quite a lot of this over the time. I mean, one example is, for example, as an epileptic, I can't drive. And I haven't been able to drive at all in my life because I developed epilepsy when I was 8. And I've often found myself in situations where people have had to do me a favour of picking me up in their car and driving me. And then, again, I kind of owe them a favour, but it's not my fault that I can't drive. I'm not lazy, and I've been in situations even when I would have preferred not to go to a particular place, but the driver insists that we're all doing it, so I have to go along with it, and it can get quite complicated. In fact, I had someone the other day. I was in a situation where my husband needed to push the car, and we had somebody helping us to push the car. And of course, it would have been easier as the woman because I'm weaker, if I would actually get in the car and do the driving bit of the car. And of course, I couldn't do that. And it didn't occur to me to do that at all. And this person said to me, "Are you sure you can't drive?" And I was like, yeah. Because he couldn't really imagine that I hadn't had at least 1 or 2 lessons, or gotten some idea. But of course, I've never really thought about how cars get driven because I don't learn things. I have learning disabilities related to my brain thing, so I don't take on things that I can't do. And I had another illustration I wanted to say, I have a situation which turned into a real catastrophe, where I had a friend of mine who wanted to take me out to dinner, okay, and he wanted to take me out to dinner quite late in the evening. So I was I wanted to give this relationship a go. I wanted to see how it would go. It wasn't a romantic thing, it was just a friendship thing. And so I said, okay, we'll do that. And then he called me up the same day that when we'd organised it. I had children, so my husband was coming and we had babysitter. And this person said that they didn't want to eat at that time. They wanted to eat an hour later because they wanted to go and do something else first. Now, as an epileptic, I have to watch my brain and my energy and my sleep patterns. And I can't eat too late in the evening. And I have to eat at particular times to make sure that I don't have seizures, as a result of that. So it just wasn't going to work. Okay, so I called the guy. I called the guy up. I called the guy up, or I sent him a text. I can't remember what it was, and I said, look, no, I called him, I think, and I said, look, I can't do it. Let's just cancel. Let's just cancel for now, and we can do it another time. And I thought that was perfectly reasonable, but it resulted in him coming around to my house with a friend and then both bullying me because he was so upset about the situation in my own home. And I'm, I had to literally, scream for him to get out of the house eventually. And it didn't end there either. I had to deal with several other repercussions over the next few weeks of people taking his side and wanting me to apologise and put me in my place, even to the point coming round to my house and giving me lectures on what a selfish person I am. So yeah, I was astounded by that. But again, that's what it's like with when people have ableist attitudes. They think there's a simple and a normal way where people can do it. It's simple and normal for them, so it should be simple and normal for everyone else. Crazy. So I'm a Buddhist, and Buddha taught awareness of suffering. And whether you know about this, but I'll be talking to some people who don't know about Buddhism and other people who've been practicing for years. That's fine. Why did Buddha teach an awareness of suffering? Now, I feel Buddha taught an awareness of suffering because there is suffering. We know from, and we can see when we have a pandemic, we can easily see there is suffering. And it's important because if we deny the suffering, then we cause ourselves more suffering because we just pretend that there's some other way that we could figure it out where there wouldn't be any suffering. And there are ways to reduce suffering. There are ways to, for example, help the planet. For example, a lot of people like to deny that the planet's really in trouble, but most of us are gradually realising that the planet is in trouble. Now, if we recognise there's a problem, we might be able to start applying solutions. But even before we start applying solutions, it is better to be aware of something than to deny it, because we will cause ourselves problems. We will think, I can easily walk from A to B. And then when we try to walk from A to B, we'll find that there's all these obstructions and we'll get upset and demoralised and we won't turn up at the time that we said we were going to turn up at. Things like that, it causes us extra problems on top of the problems that are there. So that's why Buddha taught suffering. It wasn't so much because he was, depressed. So when you have a long-term illness and disability, there'll be a lot of people around who don't understand or who don't want to think about it. It's not interesting for them. It reminds them that illness exists. It's a total buzzkill, because you can't just, drop everything and fly off on a vision of fantasy like they do. The things that I have to deal with my epilepsy, or to be honest with you, a little bit like anyone who's got children who's watching this will understand. Bringing up children involves a whole lot of actions and things that, they're just so boring and minute that if you tried to explain them to people, nobody would want to hear about what you did during the day. If you listed all the things you did during the day. In fact, when my kid was small, I couldn't remember all of the things I'd done during the day. My partner would come home from work and say, "What have you done all day?" And I'd be like, and look at the house, and the house would be a mess. And I'd be like, well, obviously I haven't done anything today. I can't see any evidence. So if you have fatigue from, COVID, for example, that, long-term disability and long-term effects of illness that you've had, there'll be things like, it'll take you longer to get yourself up in the morning, for example. I've had times when I've gone out to do something simple, and it's a good job I've had my phone with me because I've had a seizure, and then I've needed to call my husband and tell him, I know I just went down the road, but to do the simple thing, but I can't come home right now. So and so's looking after me, and I have to just recover. In fact, I'm thinking of doing some epilepsy videos of like some of the seizures that I've had to kind of illustrate what it's actually like to have one. And they take so much time. And then even if you don't, hit yourself or injure yourself, you're exhausted. It takes time to recover, and you're just so dull during that time. And I get really irritated with how dull I am whilst I'm recovering. So the main thing I wanted to say is, although you may well have a lot of people around who don't understand you, it's important to work on your self-esteem and be kind to yourself, because you know what you need. You know what you need. Sometimes I've used apps there's quite a few different apps you can get on your smartphone where you can, make a list of the sort of things you want to do during the day and tick them off. So you know what you've achieved. You know what's important to you. Even if it's a little thing that nobody else would think anything of, like remembering to take your meds, or even remembering to cook for yourself. That can take a long time. A lot of people in the modern life with our fast pace, they like to get the takeout swift because it's swifter. For someone who has fatigue or difficulty with their senses or things like that, simply preparing a meal, eating it and clearing up could take the whole day. There are people who are struggling like that, and I have times when I'm like that. So be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, know your limits, and be ready to assert them even if other people don't like them or understand them. Because, a lack of understanding can be a real problem, because people might like to think of themselves as a nice person. But if they don't understand what your problem is, it's very hard for them to actually adapt. In fact, they're disabled in that. It's not extreme, but I find when I have problems that are related to my disability, again, people who are more ableist, and sometimes they're in a more ableist mood than others because they having a bad day or whatever, they don't want to hear about the complications of my disability. They don't want to hear the reasons why things are tough for me today, and it makes them upset to hear me express myself just in a gentle and practical way. But without being extreme, I just wanted to say, if you have a long-term illness or disability or something you're struggling with that other people understand, why compensate for their pain? You are already struggling, so it's really important not to worry too much about how inconvenienced other people are being. Because what matters is coming back to yourself, coming back to what you want to achieve today, you know, how you want to feel about yourself, and reinforcing that, because you have more idea of what's going on with your personal body and your personal needs than anybody else has, even if they've got a strong grasping of what's normal and, you know, would like to help you to reach it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the thing is, in this world, people love to hear people talk about thinking for the best and not being negative, but there's a lot of denial often that goes along with statements like that. And people love to hear about hero stories, don't they? Oh, this person, they pushed through their problems and they came to the top, you know. But we seldom hear about those people's crappy days, which, as they're human, they're bound to have had. So it's important, I think, to recognise when people are wanting you to push through your problems in order to be more normal, when just dealing with your day-to-day needs is difficult enough. And this sort of self-awareness is really important. Like I say, if you've got special needs, you have got special needs, and you understand them more than anybody else does. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's not an overly unusual concept, but I just wanted to put it out there because I've seen, I can see that, for example, when COVID is over, people will want to get back to the normal because that's what will make them feel comfortable. But there will be some people who are having to deal with COVID, even if we eradicate it completely as a disease that people catch. There will be people who are having to deal with the consequences of the effects that COVID has had on their body, on their mind, on their emotions, and on their relationships. And so I feel that as a Buddhist, a recognition of these sufferings, rather than being negative, is actually an opportunity for being aware of how rocky the road is, so that you can pack well and, you know, start to live a happy life for yourself, and a happy life that, you know, might not measure up to people's expectations, but produces joy for you, potential joy, or at least an even keel where you can continue forward to have experiences regardless of the fact that you unfortunately have developed this issue that separates you from other people from time to time. So yeah, that's just me. I wanted to share that with people today. I feel grateful that to have my channel, even when I haven't posted, you know, to know that I have posted and to read the responses that people have to me, yeah, it's just nice to have another thing to have in the background. So I've really enjoyed this process of speaking up, and thank you for listening. So I'll see you later in some other video, no doubt. Okay, bye bye.